I mean, you talk about like who'd you say did this complex? Because I was only half listening.
Matt Winning.
Matt Winning?
Yeah, the theory is if you do a circuit where you're doing 3 different exercises, 25 reps, 4 rounds, that it's going to increase your work capacity. It's going to get blood flow to the muscles and tendons, which is going to strengthen the connective tissues and make it a lot harder for injury to happen. And the reason for this is Matt Winning was going to competitions, and when you go to a powerlifting meet, you squat, you bench, and you deadlift. And what a lot of people do is they'll, which is normal. You train your squat one day, your deadlift another, and your bench another day. And all of a sudden you go to a powerlifting meet, you gotta do all 3 in one day. You get done doing your squats, now you're gonna go bench press, you're exhausted, you've never done that before. So what he thought of is doing this as a warm-up would help increase his work capacity, which led to him going on to be one of the greatest powerlifters of all time. But on top of that, Matt Winning has never had an injury. So that also speaks for itself. The guy's a friggin' freak of nature. Everybody I know that's competed has had an injury. So clearly the guy's onto something. All right, that's round 4. 5. Also, just a nice little way to get cardio in. Like I said, you just do 4 rounds of it. You can even time yourself. The goal is to try to get that done really quickly. After a while, it'll get easier and easier. I know when I first started, it affected my workout a lot. Like I felt really weak, but as time went on, I would recover really quickly. About a minute after, my breathing would come down, I feel great. So it's just something I like to throw into my training. Even though I'm not powerlifting anymore, I still like to avoid injury. Also something to note, if you're gonna do that warm up, don't just do it with if you're doing chest, you wouldn't wanna do leg curls and leg extensions and the ab wheel. You would wanna do some kind of chest pressing, some kind of tricep movement, and something for your back, because your back is very important on your bench press days. You wanna have it very specific to what you're doing that day. So if you're bench pressing, you probably wanna do some kind of dumbbell variation. Also something else he mentions, and then I'll shut the fuck up about Matt Winning, is it's important to change the variations of exercises often when you're doing these warm-ups. Because something that you can run into is overload, or you're over-stimulating that movement, so it's gonna create injuries from overuse. So he likes to switch up the handles, whether it be you use a rope for the tricep extensions one week you use a V handle, just trying to switch the variations up a bit. I started doing those a few years back when I first got back into lifting. When I was younger, I had some injuries. I had hamstring tendonitis, biceps tendonitis, back injury, triceps tendonitis. Basically just pretty prone to tendonitis. So I figured getting back into it, I wanted to do whatever I could to avoid anything like that. And getting a lot of blood to those tendons before you go and lift weights is a really great way to avoid pain. I started lifting when I was 13 years old. I made a video about that. I had a pretty interesting upbringing. I was in this cult, the Jehovah's Witnesses. That was fun. But needless to say, I was bullied pretty good. Started lifting weights. Got into pretty damn good shape, even at a young age. I mean, I've been told my whole life taking massive amounts of drugs. I did a video on the why I take testosterone. I do take testosterone. If you're interested, you can check out that video for more in depth. But I ended up having to take 2.5 years off from lifting because I got this autoimmune issue. It's called eosinophilic esophagitis. Let's get this burned. Nice deep stretch, open up the fibers. Drag. So yeah, I got that autoimmune disease, and it is what it is. I'll be honest with you. You're gonna see videos of me vlogging sometimes, and I'll do something really simple, and I'll be out of breath. It causes inflammation in my esophagus in my stomach, which ends up giving me gastritis and asthma of the stomach, which is something I didn't even know was a thing. And I have off days. And I'll be honest with you, today is one of those days. Woke up today, nauseous, low energy, didn't feel like doing shit. But I'm here, I showed up. That's all that matters. I mean, every one of us has an excuse. Every one of us has a reason to not go do something that we should. You just gotta show up. You gotta stop fucking putting excuses in front of your goals. If you want to do something, go out and do it. I've got every excuse in the book. I'm sure you do too. I'm sure you tell yourself every night when you go back home and you don't go to the gym. Maybe next week. If you want to make a change, it starts right now. If you want to change your life with edit, whatever it is, it doesn't even have to be the gym. You gotta go do it. There's always gonna be limitations for all of us. There's always gonna be some kind of excuse. You just gotta go get it, man. Speaking of that, it's time for another set. Oh, this machine is the best, man. This stretch you get on the pecs. You see how this thing moves? It's like dumbbells, but it's kind of like on a track a little bit, but pretty much, you know, you have the freedom with the machine, and the stretch at the bottom is just unreal. This thing, they don't make these anymore. It's a Cybex. You see something similar in gyms, but nothing like this. Like, I can come all the way at the top and touch these handles. This is my favorite chest exercise because the stretch on this thing is unbelievable. If you can find one of these things, get it. Let's build big boobies. Yeah, plate loaded advanced chest, that's what it's called right there. I recommend this bad boy. Sorry. Ooh. A little awkward to get into when you got big boobs. Fuck, man, that stretch is stupid. I had a video recently talking about how I do the dumbbell bench, and you know, if I was to do this machine the way I like, I'm getting a big stretch here, pausing for, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds, maybe even more. Feels good, I'm gonna hold it. Then I'm gonna come back up, and I'm gonna come back down nice and slow. But what someone was saying is, why not bring the dumbbells or machine, and it's better with machines, but with dumbbells, it's not ethical. Because, I mean, you can get a decent contraction at the top, but the problem is, you're fighting gravity. And you're using dumbbells, you know, as you come in with them like this, you're not doing anything besides engaging your triceps more, and we're trying to work our chest. With the machine here, you can kind of manipulate it, and the tension is still there. I have tension on my pecs right here a lot. But with dumbbells, there's no point in doing that, really. You're just wasting your time.
Also, the biggest reason that you use dumbbells for bench is to work your stabilizer muscles more.
Yeah, that's nice. Getting balances. Another thing with dumbbells that's really nice and most people don't even do is they're getting the dumbbells And here, I'll show you what they make the biggest mistake of with dumbbells. Is the reason that dumbbells are great is you got freedom of motion. You can move these things and get a nice deep stretch on the pecs. But what you're doing, if you're bringing these down and you're touching your chest with them, is like, look at my, go down to my angle where you can see my hands. If I was holding a barbell, I'd actually be lower than this. I'd be more like here with the barbell. So when you're coming down and you're just touching your chest, you are doing less work than you would be with a barbell because you're getting less range of motion. With dumbbells, you should be getting your shoulder blades back and down, your chest high, getting these dumbbells outside of your chest, touching the outsides of your shoulders, getting a huge stretch, and then coming back up. And like I was saying over there, you don't need to be locking these out at the top because you're just engaging your triceps more. You don't need to bring them together and clank them like some people do. It's a waste of time. Focus on getting the big stretch. That is where the money is. That is what I've always focused on my entire lifting career, if you want to call it that. And then all of a sudden, all these people are coming out and they're talking about how important the deep stretch is. Well, no shit. It's all I've been doing. All I've done my entire lifting is just get a big stretch, come up, contract. You know, when I'm doing the bodybuilding part, when I'm doing the powerlifting, it's obviously a lot different. That's a completely different story. But if you're trying to build muscle, I mean, I could do it with 30-pound dumbbells if I wanted. I don't need to bench the 100s or 140s, 150s anymore. It's just, it's not important. The stretch is the most important thing. It's like, that's what everybody's talking about. Back when I was younger, I noticed every time I did Romanian deadlifts, when I got that deep stretch in my hamstrings, the next day they were toast, and they would be for days. I had big hamstrings. Whenever I would do incline curls, big stretch in my biceps, I got big biceps. Okay, so I started doing that with every other exercise, focusing on that deep stretch. And I like to pause it. I like to get 1, 2, 3 second pause. And here's another little secret for you, for me. So it's always worked for me. If I have a muscle that's lagging behind, what I'll do is after a set, I'll get an extra 10 to 15 weighted stretch in there. And I don't know the science behind it, but it seems to me, and from some articles that I've seen, that when you put that muscle under a deep weighted stretch, you are able to build muscle really easily. At least it's always worked for me, and anybody that I've ever trained, that has always worked super well for them. And like I said, there's all kinds of studies that are coming out now. I saw one recently that this group of people did calf raises, and then another one just did weighted stretches, where they would have the weight at the bottom and just stretch the calves, and at the end of the experiment, they had about the same amount of growth. So, I mean, what if you were doing your calf raises, getting a good contraction and just focusing on the stretch, or in anything in general? Most people are just kind of bouncing the weight and moving it. Instead of doing that, just focus on a nice deep stretch, and I really think that the results are going to speak for themselves. You're going to feel the muscles, you're going to be able to connect to those muscles, and they are going to grow over time a lot better. The reason that those extreme ranges of motions are dangerous and you need to use less weight is because the probability of injury goes up a shit ton when you're going that deep into a stretch. So that's why you're seeing me lift one plate on here. The stretch is nice, the pump is nice, and I don't give a shit about anything else. I could do more weight. I can do a lot more weight than this, but I'm not gonna get that same feel, that connection to the muscle, getting that stretch. And as soon as you start training like this, you're gonna see that. You just focus on that big stretch, get the blood into the muscle, get a quick contraction, come back down, nice and slow. As seriously, it's the most important part of bodybuilding in my mind. I got this from John Meadows. He really liked the shallow inclines for the upper chest. I really like it too. If I go too high, I personally feel it a lot in my front delts. And there's nothing wrong with that. Front delts need love too, but I wager that a lot of you have issues with your upper pec development compared to your front delts. But when I'm doing these, like, I'm coming down nice and slow. And I'm literally touching my biceps with these dumbbells. That's how low I'm getting. And I can even kind of bring them out a little bit like this and increase the stretch even more instead of having my hands in. I feel the stretch getting bigger when I do this. Bring them out a little bit. Be careful though, you can't go heavy with these. Sticking your chest up nice and tall. Big stretch. Now some people are probably wondering, well, can I do both? Can I lift heavy and then do this? Yeah, of course you can. It'd be considered power bodybuilding. If you want to get stronger and bigger, go for it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually what I used to do for years. But as I've gotten older, it's not for me anymore. I don't care how much I can bench press anymore. I don't care how much I can dumbbell bench, curl, anything. My philosophy is this, and it was the exact opposite before. I would rather look like I can bench 425 still and not have to, than to be able to bench 425 and probably not look like I can even do it. And risking injury every time. It's just not worth it to me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to do powerlifting, but
no, there's nothing wrong with it. When it's a lot easier and attainable goal to chase a number, especially when you first start lifting. I think strength is the first thing you see a difference in. You know, you're going in 1 week, you're benching 65 pounds. Let's say you're pretty weak, and then a couple months later, you're benching 95 pounds. It's like you see it. It's a lot harder to see the results in the mirror. And I think the best way to get somebody into lifting and like kind of get addicted to it is to see the increases in strength where people see the progress. It's a lot harder to see the progress in the mirror, especially because a lot of us are very critical and judgmental. I'd say that's a great place to start. And there is nothing wrong with powerlifting. I love powerlifting. It used to be literally my identity, it was my passion, the only thing that got me going in life. And it got me through really, really tough times. I mean, my therapy was the deadlift. I'd smack the shit out of myself until I blew blood vessels in my face and lift crazy amounts of weight off the ground, and I loved it. It was so cathartic. It was like a dump of all the inside anger and frustrations I was dealing with. But now, it's not there anymore. I don't have that competitive edge I used to have. I used to be extremely competitive. You know, even now I can go into a gym, and let's say my girlfriend is doing tricep extensions with 65 pounds. She just gets done and she's kind of, she's using momentum a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. She has her own technique. She likes it. It feels good for her. She's jacked. But when I do it, I'm focusing on a big stretch and just like kind of contracting. I'll literally go up and use the same weight she is. There was a time where there's no way in hell I'm using the same weight as a girl. I don't give a shit anymore. Whatever ego I used to have is dead. And that's good. Like, I'm not going to get hurt again. I feel like I'm going to just keep making gains. And when I'm 60 or 70, I'm going to still be able to move. Which is like, what more could you ask for? Remember when I was younger, I used to walk up to the bar. And this thought would cross my mind, like, this could be the last time you do this. You could get hurt. And I did not give a fuck about future me. And all I got to say about that is that guy was a fucking douchebag. Because I've been in a lot of pain over these years because of what I did to myself. Blowing my back out at 21, now that I'm 31 a decade later, it's kind of been a pain in the ass. And there's a lot of working around it, and everything's great now, but there was a period there where it's pretty shitty. So you can get injured at a young age. A lot of people say, oh, you're made of rubber or whatever when you're a kid and nothing can happen to you. 21's pretty young to be in excruciating pain every day. This is one of my favorite tricep exercises. Probably my second favorite, next to a body weight tricep extension. But it's a skull crusher and a bench press together. So what you see I'm doing at the top there is I'm kind of coming down and touching my shoulders. I'm bringing my elbows back, and then I'm just flying the weight up. And these are called a rolling tricep. And how a lot of people do them is like this. But what I like to do with them is I'm not doing them really for strength, a little bit, but for more size. So I'm coming down nice and slow, putting a lot of tension on the triceps, and then I fly back up. Because honestly, part of the way up is the least important. And what you can do with these, which is really nice, is you can overload them. You can get really heavy on these. Sometimes I get up to 60 or even 70 pounds of these where I'm just, because you can always lower a lot more weight than you can come back up with. Like, I'm not going to say I'm sitting here doing 70s like this. Like, I'm not skull crushing them, but I am coming down with them because you can handle a lot more on the way down. And then I come back up with them. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the fitness vlog. It's episode 1, and stay tuned for more because we're doing back and biceps tomorrow. Stay jacked.